And so anyway, the long and the short of it was, they said, well, he's got his swim cart. I said, it ain't gonna help when he goes through that motor. And so then he started screaming at the top of his lungs. And I said, you know, I told him if he tried it again, I said, I will tie you in a seat. This boat, fishing boat, doesn't catch fish. Catches horseshoe crabs. Horseshoe crabs are used right now. Our winter fishery here is conch. If you've ever been to Key West, they write conch fritters. This is where a lot of the conchs come from for that. Actually, a lot of them go to Asia. They're also used for medical research. They are a copper-based blood, so it's blue.
Yeah.
And they use it for testing pharmaceuticals. Okay. So they get $3 a crab, and for that, you have to catch it, bring it in, load it on a truck, take it an hour north to Salisbury, where they draw a piece, you know, a percentage of the blood, cut a piece out of the shell to show that it has already given blood, and then you have to pick them up and bring them back and take them back out.
Okay.
They get $3 a piece.
That's it for all this?
For that, all that, per crab. They get $60,000 a gallon for it. So if you ever wonder why drugs cost so much, that's a chunk of it. They only use a drop per representative batch, but that's what that goes for.
The crab blood is so great.
Yeah, that horseshoe crab blood is like, so it can identify minute
any impurities. Any impurities in there. They say that what happens is they put a drop of that in, a representative, they'll pull, you know, like a gallon or so out, just a representative batch, put a drop of that in, and if there are any impurities, they said it is like steel to a magnet.
Oh, wow.
It just comes right to it.
For a crab.
So they release them.
They've released them.
They
release them. They're allowed to keep 15% of the bait, or 15% of them as bait, and that's what's used for the conch fishery here in the wintertime. They're all out today. They're all out in the ocean running their pots because
so
the weather's nice.
Horseshoe crabs are underwater? Like they live underwater and we
crawl on the bottom.
Wow, okay. Yeah. I don't like they come near the shore. They
do when they lay eggs. Yeah. There's actually, I know there's only 6 people in the state that have hen harvest for that.
Okay.
And in the spring when they come in, they go into Tom's Cove, just pick them up. Just pick them up by the tail, throw them in the boat. The hen guys have a deal work with the guy that has the truck. Haul them up there. Obviously, this is the harbor in the South End. You saw all those big satellite dishes over there. That is one of the 2 NOAA data acquisition centers. That is where the Atlantic Ocean starts.
Okay, so this is a bay, right?
This is a bay. This is all part of Chincoteague Bay. Yeah. This island off to our right, nothing really special about the island. It's called Point of Hummocks. Where those poles are, there used to be about 150 to 200 feet of beach beyond that. And our inlet opened up and eroded that down over the last 10 years. 6 years ago, Halloween night, the house that was on top of those pilings went away. Nobody was in it.
Okay.
But it went away. And then, like I said, Wallops is behind it. That what you can see out there is Scenic, runs from here to Ocean City, Maryland. It's about 37 miles long, and that is the wildlife refuge. In the summertime, it's not uncommon to have dolphins right here. were happy to see an eagle yesterday.
Today, this morning.
Oh, this morning?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
We may see eagles again today.
Okay.
Rocket launchers from. This is the required 6 miles away from the launch pad. Where you see those 2 water towers to the left, that's where the big rockets are launched from. And the biggest thing that gets launched out of here is the resupply to the International Space Station, although that currently is on hold because the rocket bodies came from the Ukraine.
Thank you so much.
You're cold?
Very cozy. Have you seen many rocket launches?
Oh yeah. They have fired over 16,000 rockets out of here since 1945. So rocket launches are not that unusual.
Did you say 16,000?
Over 16,000 since 1945. At one point, they actually launched 1 an hour for 24 hours. During the eclipse this summer, they launched 3. 1 before, 1 during, and 1 after. But then we might go, 2 months without one. We never know.
They let us.
Odd-shaped buildings, kind of to the right, one's behind that duck line, one's a little to the right of it. That's a Navy program. They teach gunnery officers how to fire Aegis missiles. So we occasionally get a missile launch from here. For instance, with the Antares that resupply the International Space Station, they have to time it so that they link up. And it takes about 24 hours to link up. In fact, I was sitting here. The thing is, it happens almost every time that I've got a big a launch from one of the bigger rockets. In my mind, the countdown, it takes about 9 to 10 seconds for the sound to get from there to here, and then you not only hear it, you feel it. It's and relatively speaking, I mean, obviously compared to like one of the big rockets that NASA fires off, it's not that big. It's not a Saturn V. But yeah. And that big airfield over there was actually backup landing.
Yeah, I saw. Yeah, I see it.
In that last tree to the left, right behind the beach,
Uh-huh.
there is an eagle. It's kind of a gap on the left side, close to the top. Could be either way. Okay, so you now have tripled your eagle sight.
Eagle sight. Yeah.
And I'm going to take you up here to a sandbar that's out because the tide's low. That should have tons of wading in it. As I know, Cooper, we got a conversation.
Oh yeah, I see it.
This is actually a oyster and clam hatchery. They also process clams and oysters.
There's gulls.
What's that, on the pole?
Yeah.
Nah, they're rats with wings, also known as seagulls. Hairy gulls and blackbacks.
I thought the pigeons were the rats with wings. But
Well, we have more seagulls than that. You guys are using a New York standard.
Correct.
I'm using a Chincoteague standard. So it's a little, ours is a little different. Anyway, if you look to your left, in here, you will see
Oh yeah.
crates and crates of oysters and clams. This is stuff that's ready to be harvested. Those floating cages and those standing cages hold oysters, and you can actually see where oysters are growing up underneath of there. Like I said, this is a processing plant, and what they do here is they go out and harvest this stuff, bring it in, and what they do is they keep it in the water so it continues to feed. So it is at peak.
They look
Picture
very squished.
Yeah, they don't have a problem.
Do we feed them or like they get?
Nope. They
From the-
filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. You notice how murky the water is? That is a little bit darker, and how clear it is in there.
Nice.
They're eating all that stuff. If you like clams or oysters, you can actually come down to this place, Tom's Cove Aqua Farm, there off Ridge Road. Oysters are $45 per 100 if you want that many, or I think they're $10 a dozen. And clams are $30 per 100 for little necks or middle necks. But that's only good if you happen to like to eat oysters or clams.
We're not going to be home for like 3 more days. We have to keep them in like.
Then you pick them up the day that you're leaving. Take them with you. Anyway,
And how do they get the clams? They go underwater or like?
clams are under the water. And one of the reasons that they keep them in here is to give them time to learn their system and understand stuff better. But with the oysters, they keep them there as well. It's not for them to clean their system out, but fat is flavor, essentially. So what happens is as long as they're feeding their person who buy them somewhere in the market, always try to feed them their own fat by staying so anyway, okay. The reason we have the ponies in Virginia, and they belong to the Volunteer Fire Company, is because we had 2 bad fires here in the early 20s that burned down half the town. Enough that once upon a time GPS would just letters in the alphabet. Didn't really mean anything.
Yeah.
And we relied on these things. In fact, even when I tested for my first captain's license, you have to be able to plot and navigate on paper with a compass. And so you use these as reference points. And this one's been around, was completed in 1867, allegedly haunted by a former assistant lighthouse keeper. This is also where the village existed. First known settler here was 1651, and the last people were evicted by the federal government in 1930. They were paid $10 an acre.
Because they wanted to make it a library.
And they wanted to make it a library. And it wasn't a tough decision for them. I mean, that sounds terrible, but there was no bridge, so you could only get here by boat.
Yeah.
That is one of the 9 houses remaining that came off of here. 3 to the right is a great one. That's another one. They were moved over here by the men and women that lived out here, and they got Guard didn't have enough boats at the beginning of World War II. They used that boat as a sub chaser. I don't know what they were going to do if they caught one,
Yeah, it's just,
but they actually went out, mounted a machine gun on it, and went out chasing submarines.
submarines with that small.
Yeah, like I said, I don't know what they were going to do if they found one.